Nakama here, and I just played or watched the Let's Play of AI the Somnium Files, Nirvana Initiative, and the game's pretty good. Yeah, this video is going to be, as the title suggests, it's going to have spoilers for Zero Escape series and AI the Somnium Files series, both games. I just want to talk about Uchikoshi's accomplishments. But before that, if you want to like a spoiler-free of opinion of this game, yeah, Nirvana Initiative in specific is a really good game. I think it improved a lot of stuff in the previous first game, and I really enjoyed the some of the new characters as well as the old characters and how they develop, which is really awesome. Personally, I think it might be my favorite Uchikoshi work to date. I mean, it could be a recency bias. I'm kind of hyped after all that awesome ending. So that concludes my non-spoiler discussion now. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can close the video, or if you want to be spoiled or you just don't care, you can continue. And this, I also really want to first of all specify Uchikoshi's own mentality, like how he's changed over the years, because you know that in everything started with 999, and at least for me, like I started becoming an Uchikoshi fan by playing 999, and I think I played this game when I was like 12 years old or something. Yeah, a 12-year-old playing 999, not the greatest of ideas. Maybe I was 13 or maybe 14. My memory is just kind of a bit hazy, but I think it is around 2009, maybe 2010, maybe 11, 10 or so. So yeah, I think, yeah, it's about 13 or 14 when I was that years old. And yeah, I loved 999. I think it was my favorite game of all time for a while. I played or watched Let's Play because I didn't own a Vita at the time. And I watched the Let's Play of Virtue's Last Reward. And it was also like a really good game. I really think they were like on par with one another, eye for an eye. And I still kind of think that too overall, but overall I think my opinion is changed towards Virtue's Last Reward being the superior game. And Zero Time Dilemma is something. It's very fun, but it also has a few retcons. It also has some jank-ass 3D models. But overall, it was a very fun, enjoyable experience that had some very good character moments, some very emotional moments, and some very over-the-top, ridiculous moments too. And also like some like issues with characterization, I think, and also retcons. Including that, it was a fun experience. But I also think the story also is arguably the weakest, maybe. Like, it depends on how you look at it and what you consider to be the strong points and how much weight you give to certain aspects of the story. So, AI the Somnium Files, but generally I think I want to focus on AI the Somnium Files. I would like to talk about Zero Escape in a different video, but I am going to spoil Zero Escape. But what's interesting about the first AI Somnium game, and like both Somnium game, is that I think if you play the Zero Escape series and then play AI the Somnium Files, it's very apparent that you can almost see the like differences in mentality in Uchikoshi and how he's evolved over the years, in my opinion at least, because in this game you have multiple branching paths. You have these logs appearing in the timelines, and I think Uchikoshi has learned from his experiences with Zero Escape and is using that well here. He sometimes uses the Zero Escape OST, but overall, the AI Somnium Files is just much more grounded compared to the Zero Escape series. It doesn't have all that shifting or time travel. It doesn't have those type of characters who can just freely will their own consciousness into different timelines. It has AI, which is really good. I think since AI existed, robots existing is also a thing. Yeah, but basically it has some technological advancements. It has a lot of stuff, except time travel. You can like people can go into other people's minds and dreams, but time travel is just not a real thing. Yeah, maybe parallel worlds maybe exist, but debatable whether those things actually exist or not. But generally, I think one of the reasons I think this is just my guess, as to like trying to decipher the enigma that is Uchikoshi's thought process. But I think he kind of realized the value of more simplistic, down-to-earth stories, such as Mayumi and Ora's story, such as yeah, and also just general murder mysteries without the solution being having to do with supernatural aspects. I mean, the murder mysteries in Zero Escape doesn't really also have much supernatural answers, but detectives also use certain knowledge from other timelines to their advantage to solve the mysteries. Whereas in this case, in my opinion, the advantage to having timeline jumping and characters solving mysteries with time travel is that it's kind of unique and interesting. But there's also a huge reason why writers kind of don't use that because it also feels like a cop out too. Like in Virtue's Last Reward, there are generally a lot of moments where Sigma just remembers certain information from other timelines and just points out, oh, Dio did this because I remember this happening in a different timeline. And while that is cool, I think what Zero Skip kind of really did well was that even if the characters had supernatural time traveling powers, the viewer never really felt like they were being spoiled by anything because they already knew the answer from a different timeline. But it still doesn't help the fact that Sigma isn't really challenged all that much, and as a result he feels like he kind of relies on his time travel abilities more than Junpei, maybe even some other characters in AI Somnium Files. It gives the viewers a much more relatable character because the player is constantly jumping around through these timelines, and Sigma is also someone who can absolutely be relatable to the audience in that he also remembers all these timelines and stuff that happened in it. So in a way, I think in Virtual's Last Road, the mystery for the players was really well structured and a lot more relatable. But in AF Somnium Files, there are like branching paths, but the characters don't really remember all the other events that happened in the other timelines. So there is this little bit of I have to remember. Oh, I have to like reread all this information again, and those characters have to like deposit all those information to me again, which is kind of repetitive. Also, it kind of forces the characters to not rely on time travel, because one of the things I think where Uchikoshi realizes that I think maybe he realizes maybe there was a different reason, but I think things got a little bit crazy in Zero Time Dilemma. What basically happens in Zero Time Dilemma is that Sigma trains in Virtual's Last Reward to be the super time god, and he goes into the Zero Time Dilemma storyline and goes into Nevada and tries to prevent Radical 6 from escaping. But unfortunately, Sigma fails, and he also performs. I think like almost everyone could agree, Sigma was really underperforming because in Virtue's last route, in the truth route, he was jumping and remembering information from the other timelines like so well. And this Zero Time Dilemma, Sigma is apparently like 60 years old, experienced person, but in a 20-year-old body. And he also has this training of time traveling. So he should be like stupidly overpowered and should like be able to jump over and over again. But unfortunately, in order to create a coherent story, he kind of had Sigma was kind of nerfed, and also Carlos was ended up being the better shifter. So that was kind of an that kind of happened in this game. I think Uchikoshi sort of realized that, so that in before the zero time dilemma was a thing, maybe his original idea was to make Sigma and Phi just jump all over the place and figure things out, which would make things very very easier to accomplish. And I think Uchikoshi also kind of saw the faults in in that kind of like giving the characters the free ability to control time travel. Because if you do that, then they can just abuse the shit out of it, and they sort of do abuse the shit out of this of time travel in this game too. But it also kind of ends up becoming very inconsistent, because there are certain aspects, scenes where, well, why don't they just jump to another timeline if the situation is becomes impossible? Like, they only need to create one timeline where everyone is saved, right? I think that is also one of the reasons why AI the Somnium Files don't have a lot of time traveling aspect to it. Like, not down to earth in the sense that it's real life, but it doesn't have time travel in the same ways as the Zero Escape series does. And for the most parts, I think that might actually be the right move, because as you all know, in Zero Time Dilemma, Sigma and Phi had to be nerfed super hard so that they just don't solve the issue with time traveling all the time. Like a lot of the same like plot hole issue too in Zero Escape. I think I think this just turned into a Zero Escape discussion, but yeah, I think one of the biggest issues that, well, if infinite number of timelines exist, why does this version of Sigma has to go to the past and save the world? Why risk their life like that? And I mean, yeah, someone has to do it, I guess. But I really wish that Sigma was doing so that Sigma and Fire were doing it in the sense that they enjoy and want to experience saving the world, rather than just oh, it's my obligation. Maybe if they would realize that, maybe it will be a lot more understandable in terms of logic, I guess. Because it's very easy to just say, well, I mean, why bother risking their lives like that when they can just give up and let the other timeline versions do it? I mean, yeah, I guess they also want to live in the timeline where the world is safe and everyone is happy, but couldn't they just jump to that timeline anyway? Like, the restrictions of what they can and can't do become really muddy. So in AI Somnium Files, basically Uchikoshi basically perfected the, ooh, is this time travel? Oh, I can't believe it's not time travel. I guess that's the twist. Uchikoshi is well known for his super duper plot twists and murder mystery giving the players a more fair mystery solving. Then how do you balance things out? How do you make things more interesting? And that, I think the first idea probably came to his head was mind hacking, analyzing people's dreams and stuff, but also probably body exchange, because that's also a very unique twist too. The rules are kind of hidden, but it is very solvable that, oh, the serial killer is actually body hopping, because depending on which timeline you went into first, if you went to the demise timeline where Iris' body was overtaken by Saito, then you're going to feel oh, maybe Iris is crazy. And there was a lot of people's initial fears, I think, that when they saw into Iris' summons, they were like, oh shit, Iris is actually kind of nutty, which is not the truth, because when you go to the other route, her somniums is just this Minecraft stuff. It's completely innocent. And I also think I definitely have to admit that things not being in a dev game, in escape room, also has a lot of benefits. It has some downsides. It has downsides in the sense that it's really hard to create a scenario where a murder mystery could easily happen. Because one thing I write a lot of mystery stories a lot, and I also yeah, I really talked about that beforehand. But generally, the reason I think Danganronpa is also like always usually a killing game, and one of the most beloved and successful ones are a killing game, and as well as I think why Uchikoshi has been trying to do this diff game stories a lot, is that it's so easy to drag the characters and make them do what you want them to do. Whereas in this kind of scenario where everyone's power level is sort of split, the characters have their own wills and they're doing their own little stuff. So it's kind of hard to really control all these characters and create a satisfying murder mystery. Is the challenge is a lot in there. Whereas in a death game, it's kind of easy, you know. Do something like maybe in Danganronpa, there are some fan Danganronpa cases where Monokuma gives out a motive saying, "Oh, you know, if you don't kill X person, then you will die, or your beloved person will die. So this person has to kill someone, and that's how the murder mystery occurs." There's one of the cases in a certain Danganronpa game. I'm not going to maybe talking about Danganronpa is a little too much spoilers, but yeah, there is actually a case that happens in Danganronpa where like, Monokuma forces people to commit murder. So it's very easy for say in AI the Somnium Files you have to have a legitimate come up with a legitimate motive for someone to murder someone. And I think AI the Somnium Files really fixed that issue easily with Saito. Saito just wants to kill and have thrills and experience fireworks. So yeah, he's a crazy serial killer, and we're tale of that guy. Yes, it kind of I think this only mostly applies to the first game, I guess. It makes it so that the whole game sort of revolves around Saito. Like everyone else is just doing their own like everyday life. Saito's the only crazy guy, and one of the biggest problems of having only a serial killer as a main villain is that the villain is all by themselves. So if they murder someone, they don't have any allies to back them up, unless it's a group of serial killers, I guess. But there's also the fact that, well, it's not very interesting, right? Because usually, like, the why a person will commit murder is almost as important as the how. And, well, serial killing is very obvious. It's for the thrills, which is fine. Yeah, you can really do some interesting stuff with it. And the game also kind of does that. But yeah, I also really enjoyed the difference. I think Uchikoshi was just sort of getting tired of the dev games, and I think him going into this creating this broad world is really enjoyable because we kind of get to see all these characters in their natural habitat. So it's in terms of world building, it's really amazing. I think Zero Escape kind of suffered from like lack of world building. I think the best game that did building really well was Virtuous Last Reward, where it tied itself into the previous game while also tying itself to Zero Time Dilemma. And it also created this interesting world, and through Temiyoji's monologues and the letters, we get to see how the world is like. I mean, Quark's letter, I guess. But we don't exactly see, we just sort of get information from other people. Whereas in AI, the Somnium Files, we actually visit people and we talk to other people, and we see these people just doing their own daily stuff while also like seeing all this new technological advancements. It's really cool, and I think the budgetary reason is also definitely helped me enjoy AI the Summer Files, maybe preferably more than like the Zero Escape series, because as much as you don't want to say, oh, I don't judge a book by the cover, this isn't an issue of cover. This is an issue of deliverance. Sometimes you just have to realize that okay, there is a limitation to what 2D sprites can deliver to you, and there's a lot of visual information that's just so nice to have and so easy to digest. Also, and then also the soundtrack is absolutely amazing. Yeah, and I also really like the whole like a politician thing and stuff, political stuff happening, the stuff with Ryuji. It's almost like a social commentary, right? Just a little bit of a lens and a window to how everyone is doing, how society is functioning, right? So in that sense, I think it's definitely a huge. It's different from the Zero Escape series, and I think that's the right takeaway. Like the point is that when you play games and stuff, like instead of thinking about whether it's better or worse than something else, it's better to think in a way that hey, it is different than what we previously experienced, and I think that's also something to appreciate about because it's kind of like really like awful to see like one trick pony, like a person just self pleasurizing themselves, not trying anything new. And I think the first AI Somnium game did a lot of new stuff, which I don't think Uchikoshi was capable of. I didn't know Uchikoshi was really good at world building. I didn't know like he also had this like interesting like social commentary on how politicians act and what they do and internet slangs like pop culture for Iris. There's also some interesting stuff. The things of virtuous themes of virtuous last reward repeating itself, such as the future changing the past, which is something that happened in virtuous last reward. But I think Uchikoshi is like really mastered this. Oh, I'm like repeating certain elements from the Zero Escape series, except I'm actually not. The answer is much more realistic and simpler. And I think that's also good because I think we're so conditioned to the Zero Escape series. Like most of the people who are playing, maybe not the most, but a lot of the people who are playing this game also either going to play the Zero Escape series afterwards or have played the Zero Escape series in the past. So trying to like trick those players into thinking it's going to be on the same route, but like pulling the rug and doing a lot more grounded twist is a lot interesting. It's super interesting. I know a lot of people also find it to be like kind of disappointing that Zero Escape series had this amazingly crazy, mind-blowing twists, and whereas AI's the Somnium File kind of is very grounded. It's very realistic. Uh, like I can almost imagine like being 100 years in the future, AI might be an actual thing. So that is like talking to an AI ball and stuff like that might not even be just fictional. Maybe 100 years, maybe 200 years. Who knows? And yeah, I think people just kind of like some people just kind of like prefer Zero Six more crazy time twist. But personally, I think it's sort of like a balancing mechanism. I think one friend I had with like discussed Zero Skip with kind of like sums it up. Zero Skip series is a really fun game to play, but it's a really shitty game to think about because when you think about it for a long time or like analyze every little small aspect, then you kind of realize that holy shit, a lot of these twists just don't make logical sense or they're just paradoxical in its own way. And that's kind of cool in a way because I don't think like when Uchikoshi was like writing this, he wasn't thinking about this has to like 100% make sense or has to be in reality. No, I think he was just like theorizing and just saying that I know this cool stuff or how about it, if time travel existed, this will happen and this will be kind of cool, stuff like that. No, it will be kind of cool if kind of cool and trippy if you like did a certain route and when you jump back, then the actual character remembers what you did in a different timeline. But I think it's also kind of like that's also one of the issues with like writing like stories that are completely impossible in reality. Because I mean, I really doubt that time travel like is going to be like discovered in the future. Like even 1,000 years in the future, like maybe traveling into the future might be possible. I mean, traveling to the future is actually really like easy. You just go into a lab, you go into cold sleep, your body gets frozen, I don't know, it gets frozen for 60 years, and the person gets back. I mean, Zero Skip does it. It's like time traveling into the future is really simple. I think that's actually kind of possible. I mean, you're even technically like time traveling in the future when you go to sleep and wake up. That's almost feel like a time travel, despite the fact, excluding the fact that your body got older. Going to the past is kind of trippy, unless it's like going to the past creates a different timeline, or maybe you're not actually going to the past. You're just going to a simulation that's like made it to be like completely identical to the past. I mean, I guess that's one way to do it, but like creating like the whole simulation like that is kind of really hard. So yeah, I think AI the Somnium Files just said, okay, there are some technological advancements. There's body swapping, and in the future there's also some other stuff like that. There's body swapping. There's some like AIs. There's quantum mag powers, but just not time travel. I think that's also a very interesting, creative limitation he put himself on, because he can't just make, murder mysteries like, oh, the body traveled back into the future, from the past to the future, or like when they found the, what was it again, was it Mummy or Mame? His body, like died for it was Iris, and then and then we saw Iris again, so the thought process was that, oh, I was resurrected or something, or maybe we traveled back into the time, and the body went to a different timeline. So it's always like the AI. What I really love about AI Somnium Files is that it almost references the Zero Escape series in the sense that certain like weird mysteries that happen that almost feel like a certain like time travel or like happened, but the answer is much more logical and grounded, but also much more trickier. So if anything, like if you're a player who are playing the game and you immediately jump to time travel and stuff like that, then you're kind of losing it. Then you're like fated to lose. I think that's interesting because one of the convenient theory I had when playing this game Nirvana Initiative was that when I think when the body was discovered in the past, because what we experienced first is we experienced actually first time we experienced, we experienced this, but what we do experience is that Jim Fury's body in the future. Then we go back to the time and see through Ryuki's perspective about how Jin's other half was there. And one of the most confusing part of this mystery is that, the cause like the time of death is really messy. Like this is like what, like 6 hours ago, and this was like 3 days ago, which doesn't really make sense at all. Like there is a really cool twist to it, especially this body, but it also applies to the other bodies, Chikara's and Komeichi's bodies. But I think that's the actual thing that making this mystery hard wasn't actually time travel, wasn't actually the time of the. It was actually the way we were experiencing the story. And basically, Ryuki's also delusion too. He's a very unreliable narrator. He keeps like that twist was absolutely insane. I think overall really it got me good, and I think it's a very fair twist too. It almost makes me want to replay the whole game again just to see which was what and how they foreshadow certain events and whether those things completely make sense or not. Especially Ryuki's route, because I was completely oblivious to what Ryuki being in the future. I thought that everything he was doing was in the past, but that clearly was not the case. Whereas with BB's roots, I kind of realized, okay, especially towards the final chapter 4, I think, where BB talks to Shoma, I realized that there is something really odd. I think I was watching Nico B's Let's Play, and I think he realized that too. They referring to Komeichi dragging the body as if Komeichi was alive just a few days ago. That was really tripping me up. And also, all the crazy stuff happened. Really, this twist was so good. It was also really bugging me the fuck out how Kizuna got supposedly got captured in the past 6 years ago and also captured in the future, like in the exact same date. So I was like, wait, why is the game like retreading old grounds? And why is Tokyo Go Live and all that jazz? Was this twist guessable? I think it was. It really was. But it's so hard because you can guess one like issue with the thing before, but before you like try to guess that the whole guess because there's also like so many like counter arguments to this fear, so naturally you wouldn't think about it. But yeah, this is also kind of like what I was previously saying that the game is also like trying to push you into thinking that oh, this is just like zero escape parallel worlds exist. The game made you force you into agreeing with Iris in the sense that the victim Jinfu and the other victims were also like killed through supernatural means, and they were like the bodies were like cut in half through some sort of portal, and the one half went to the past and the other half into the future. But that really wasn't the case. And I really like that. Real life is sometimes like that too. Like imagine you were a detective, or maybe you're trying to do like something, or maybe you discover a certain like obstacle. You can't just say, "Oh, the answer to this question or this mystery is that time travel exists," because that's the last thing your head should go to. You should try to like find every single possible way that the person like did the crime without allowing any sort of like supernatural element, or without like jumping into conclusions, right? Like time travel and stuff like that. Those are the easy answers that you can just latch up to, and it doesn't even have any kind of proof on its basis. Whereas the more and more you progress the story as a player, yes, you get to experience that. But and yes, experience that there are a lot of holes in the story and things that just doesn't make sense in the way we experience it. And yes, there is some people have issues with the fact that this twist is generally just aimed at the viewers and not the characters, which is fine by me because a lot of twists in the Zero Skip series are like that. Some of the twists in Zero Skip series just doesn't make logical sense. Like for example, like a Sigma being an old person also doesn't make sense. Because there's like so many yes, there are some foreshadowings to it, but there's also like so much contradictions. There are some moments where Sigma is called young Alice Brad at one point, I think. Like people should be calling him like, and also people should also be a lot more respectful to Sigma, especially since they're Japanese kind of people. I mean, I guess they're not that Japanese, but still, a lot of people should be respectful to Sigma because he's an elderly person. And there's just so many times where Sigma is called young. And again, this twist is also sort of aimed at Sigma and the player. It feels like not that bad because Sigma also reacts with us. It still doesn't really change anything. I think it like whether the twist was aimed at the players or the characters doesn't really like change much of the quality to me, because when you're like reading a mystery, you generally don't care about the twist being aimed at the characters, because yeah, it kind of sucks that there isn't anyone you are able to relate to, which I think there is why the main twist in Nirvana Initiative was hated by a lot of people. But even if there was someone who you relate to, it doesn't really change the quality of the twist. A good twist, a twist that makes sense, is good. But like if a twist doesn't make sense, then it doesn't make sense, regardless of the characters being surprised by it or not. If anything, I think it kind of like AI Somnium's twist is really enjoyable to me in the sense that you almost feel like you relate to Ryuki. Like if this story was structured this way and we just jumped into Ryuki, then we won't be able to have that relatable experience with Ryuki. Like we will like be like we will feel like a crazy person when we like go into BB's routes because playing through Fold is like playing through Ryuki's route. It's actually really fun because Ryuki's route, for the most part, makes completely sense. Especially helps that Tama isn't like getting angry at the Ryuki and telling him the truth that he's hallucinating that the fact that he's in the past. He doesn't break the bubble. She doesn't break the bubble for Ryuki that much. So as a result, like Ryuki's himself thinks that he's in the past, and both the bodies that happened, and the bodies are all being like Tokigo's bodies appearing happen in the past, and there are a lot of like hints to it as well. Like for example, the boss getting angry at Ryuki for failing and letting culprit away, which seems kind of a bullshit reason to be angry. I almost got really pissed off at boss for like demoting him instead of making such a rash decision. But truth of the matter is that Ryuki was demoted because of what he did in the past. He shot a civilian, which is a much more excusable reason for demotion. And I also think this twist kind of saved Ryuki's character to me. I think it redeemed him a little more in my eyes, because we do realize that because before the twist, way before the twist was revealed to me in BB's time, whereas in BB's like final chapter 4 timeline, I was really like felt kind of bad for Ryuki and kind of like disappointed in him, mainly because in 6 years prior he was like this really good detective who was like making this great progress. Like he knew what the hidden door was, and he also realized that Mame was actually hiding in here, and all these like great developments that he was doing. He also like find the truth behind Jinfuru's body and stuff like that. So he has an amazing feat of being a great detective in the past, but for some reason in the future he just like started messing up, like shooting at a civilian and like, being threatened by terror and shooting at BB Mizuki supposedly. So I was like, man, you were so like great in 6 years ago. That is definitely like really hit you hard, huh? Like you kind of like messed up. But no, that's not the case. The future of Ryuki is actually much more smarter and more experienced. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Tama just accepted this. She could have like, this is happening not in the past, it's happening in the future, and Ryuki is just kind of like zoning out. He thinks he's in the past or something. I'm just kind of surprised Tama like didn't scream out, dude, like chill out. It happened 6 years ago. You're not going to find anything, and he kind of did. And thankfully, he kind of did solve it. Yeah, I think Ryuki's character is, especially considering the fact that he had. Yeah, he was also kind of diseased by that virus. TC Purge. Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, he was suffering from TC Purge, but still managed to, like, he solved Tokigo's like mystery. Okay, at least Tokigo's mystery was happening in the future. He like Ryuki just thought it was in the past, but Komichi's death, like, it actually like mattered. I'm kind of surprised that Tama like didn't realize this. She had the footage all this time. She just didn't look at it, I guess. It got burned and she just thought it was like relevant or something. But Ryuki managed to solve it. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, like Ryuki, like the fact that he actually managed to solve this case while like being effective with TC purges, really impressive. And most of his mistakes, such as shooting at a civilian and being threatened by terror and trying to like do everything all by myself, and like seeing some really egoistic shit like, oh, I think I'm destined to solve this HP murder case. Like, all the stupid talk happened in the past, which is good. It also, and yeah, and I also really like the fact that, well, us as the player almost had a more harder version of the mystery to solve. Maybe, Ryuki might even have the harder version because his mind was getting fucked while all of this was happening, but yeah, us as the player almost had a harder version of this mystery to solve. It's a lot more simpler when all this time when the timelines aren't like converging like this. But I think that's kind of cool, right? It's almost like the perfected version of Zero Time Dilemma, because in Zero Time Dilemma you can almost see the inspiration here, where like different timelines happen, where you choose a certain like time, make certain choices, choose certain fragments, and you don't know where that fragment actually belongs in the timeline. And since they're also constantly being like putting amnesia things on themselves, you also those characters also kind of don't remember. But that's also one of the biggest issues, because if the characters are also like constantly being dosed with something just so this twist works, then not a lot of progress is happening. Like none of the characters are developing, none of the characters actually like experience a long period of time so that they can like do certain interesting stuff or have interesting experiences and change in a certain interesting way. So yeah, it almost feels like nothing really happened and you just played a bunch of diff games, because the story was also kind of not progressing. Like if a murder mystery happened, a bunch of drama happened, then after like those people got injected with amnesia drugs, then they wake up and they just don't remember the drama. So what's the point? It kind of like hampers a lot of interesting like character motivations and drama and character development. Like, I'm not saying the previous games had fantastic character development, but like there was something. There was an actual progression. The characters were actually like learning something and referring to the past and like their past experiences. Whereas in this game, it almost feels like the opposite of Virtuous Last Reward. Whereas in Virtuous Last Reward, Sigma knew what he shouldn't know, and he had too much experience from other timelines to the point that he felt overpowered. Whereas in this game, he felt so helpless. I really don't like that many like stories where characters are not in control of their destiny, which is also why I think diff game stories are kind of faulty in that problem too, in the sense that the characters are just being dragged by Zero and doing what he wants to do, whereas AI they just like living in their world, doing what they want to do, and that's almost just as interesting, if not more. But it's also all about advantage and disadvantage. The advantage of diff games is that hey, the mastermind can drive the characters any way they want. Murder and killing can very easily occur, whereas with AI, the Somnium File in a free world where people are doing their stuff, a lot of the casual aspects take priority. I mean, yeah, another complaint was people seems to have was that the pacing was seemed off. A lot of jokes seem to drag off. Like, I really find certain jokes to be really, really funny. Especially, people didn't seem to like this joke, but I really, really enjoyed or found it really hilarious. At least the first time I saw it. And the second time was also kind of funny too. Basically, MoMA having that voice changer. When did that happen? I really don't know. Yeah, I think this is the time. This is so funny to me, mainly because Iris usually talks in a very like a VTuber way, respectable VTuber way. Just seeing Momo's face in this woman's voice, specifically a woman's voice that's similar to Iris's, coming out of him is so funny that he just like swears and then he like flirts with himself apparently, and then he just gets choked by this color. And I don't know, I just really find that to be really funny. Momo's really goofy in this game, but I also think that's a very kind of respectable character development. Like you don't want like him being a grumpy like Yakuza boss is also kind of boring in my eyes. So him just trying to like trolling with other people and himself with necklace, and then like getting karma by like almost like choking on it to death was also kind of fun to see. It was also really funny. You also kind of like get to see Lena's different side, and not being like a weirdo. And so yeah, and you also like get a lot of new like a development and other interesting tidbits about the characters and their development. Like This is not Mizuki. This is BB, I think. But still, getting to see Oda and how he developed in 6 year time, and also from the other previous games. So that was also very interesting to see. Yeah, this game, like from a sequel standpoint, I think it was amazing. Yes, it has that the wretched retcon where Mizuki was apparently adopted by the Okiuras, and actually she was experimented on by Chikara, and she actually had a real sister in the name of Bibi. But I really don't mind that retcon mainly because it's very clear why this was happened. It's so that the darn twist could work, and also so that we could have Mizuki as the main character and also Bibi at the same time, so that the twist will make perfect sense. But also because, and also to explain Mizuki's superhuman abilities. And also, we have two Mizukis now. Hooray! It's so convenient that none of the characters actually age. The only character that really aged was fuck was Kizuna, and it's very noticeable difference. She lost her legs after all, and she also changed her hairstyle. So whenever Kizuna is there, the real music is also there. I mean, music data is also there. And yes, obviously this creates the big hole of well, wait, if Mizuki and Bibi also has the exact same faces and the clothing, then people should have commented on, wow, you just look like that same person I worked 6 years ago. So we can just, pretend they forgot or just didn't consider it to be important to talk, which is kind of, but yeah. I mean, to be fair, none of those people actually saw one another. For example, Bibi never interacted with past Mizuki. Spot Lian should know. I think Momo should know, but did Momo ever interact with Mizuki? I think she mostly interacted with Bibi, honestly. And future Oda and future Iris interacted with Mizuki. So there's something going on there. Bibi interacted with Prosody. I'm sorry, I keep calling him Prosody, but mostly Bibi was interacting with Gen. I think Mizuki also kind of interacted with Gen, but she was also mostly interacting with Date. So the twist isn't actually as bad. The only thing that's kind of odd is, well, Lian should have said something since he interacted with both. But he was also kind of being distracted with Kizuna. And also Mama should have said something, I guess. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues with that twist. And the fact that, well, why not the characters age at all? Like, we as the player, understand that, okay, there is some budgeting issue, it's anime, whatever. But in universe, the characters should have changed a little bit, unless in universe they look exactly the same too. In that case, why does Chikara worry himself of so much with people aging if people just generally doesn't age in this anime world? So yeah, in that sense, there is some certain issues with this twist, but it's so much less BS compared to I don't know, something like why does Defiant Sigma have to go to the past to solve this mystery, and why does they have to stop Radical 6 when every timeline is possible? Why didn't anyone say something about Sigma being an old man? Why did that happen? Whereas in this twist is at least digestible. It's not as crazy. If anything, it's not as crazy as you think it is. Yeah, I almost felt kind of grumpy towards BB's chapter 4 route, mainly because it was implying that somehow Chikara found eternal youth, or not necessarily Chikara, mostly Tokiko. Yeah, Tokiko was right, and she could actually resurrect herself.
Nice to meet you.
And then Jim Furrier also kind of faked his death or something along those lines. So it almost kind of pained me to admit it to agree with Iris that parallel worlds exist, because that's the only like explanation I could think of to explain how Tokyo revived apparently, and how the body's time of death were so. It almost felt like those like Chikara and Komichi like lived in the future, but then suddenly, and their body somehow was in the past and they're in the future. So yeah, this did manage to solve the mystery without resulting in some kind of timey wimey bullshit. And I also, even if you don't consider time travel, murder mystery is still very creative. Mostly Jin's murder mystery, because that even if the characters weren't affected by the whole Kimichi and Chikara twist. I mean, Ryuko was affected a little bit because he was hallucinating, but everyone was affected by the whole Jin Furui's body being cut in half, and one part being in the future and the other being in the past, and somehow the future one seemed to have lived long enough and only died 3 days ago when they found the body. That is super weird, but there is a very logical explanation. I mean, it's kind of like silly to know the fact that they found actually found a body who was actually had an identical DNA to Jin, which in the form of Uru. But yeah, it's kind of weird. But yeah, and there's also the fact that how Uchikoshi uses this alternative timeline too. It's very interesting because it gives sort of an alternative way to experience the story, but yeah, it gives a much more first-hand experience because we are playing as Mizuki in this timeline, where it's Lian's end, by the way. So we get to experience all this new information firsthand for Mizuki. Then we, in the truth path, Mizuki gets all this information dumped to him by Bibi and Date. And we just skip all that info so that the players don't have to experience the same information over and over again. So yeah, I think that's also one way to interesting way to use the timeline. And also we kind of got this cool action scenes in Gen and Mamen's timeline. Really sad and it was really good too. I personally really liked this ending. But yeah, it kind of feels weird because AI the Somnium Files s- isn't as crazy as Zero Escape in some ways, but I also kind of like it. It's crazy. I think, if I think Uchikoshi really racked his brain uh, when he made this game because it's so easy to like fall down to okay, in order to trick the player, what do we do? Oh, the characters actually used certain time travel methods to kill the culprit and the victims in the past, and they use time travel to drag the body into the future. Like that is the easy answer. The actual answer is much more complicated, but also a lot more logical. Yeah, I think it's also very unique twist in the sense that you're supposed to suspect the game for like cheating you instead of like suspecting necessarily the culprits. I think it really does make me want to like replay the whole game again because this is a very good game with a lot of great messages, and I think that's also one thing to consider and why I really like AI the Somnium Files. Aside from the improved visual aspect and the soundtrack being amazing, it also has to do with the fact that a lot of this message and the theme of the story is also very interesting. Like I really enjoyed. I know a lot about Buddhism and meditation, Taoism. I know a bit. I know a bit about that. So, like Tokiko's reasoning about the world being fictional is also very interesting, and also kind of getting a confirmation and interesting take on it. Of course, I don't agree with it. Just because meditation exists and just because Bodhidharma sat facing the wall for 9 years doesn't necessarily mean he was trying to find the seams of the world. If anything, if the world was fictional, then what was the point of like? I mean, there was a point in the sense that I guess Bodhidharma believed that the world was fictional, but also wanted to enlighten other people and let other people reach moksha. So that's why he traveled to China and delivered the essence of Buddhism in China. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the fact that the world is a fake. Like enlightenment isn't necessarily about that. Like after like learning the truth of the world and becoming enlightened, Gautama the Buddha didn't just fucking start facing through walls, and Bodhidharma just didn't start. He didn't just become Neo. That's not possible. And even the whole like Freyr business is that it's kind of like sort of like intended for the player, right? It's also kind of like whether it's debatable whether it's canon or not. You believe in what you want to believe. If you think that Tokyo had some certain abilities that allowed her to get out of the real world, then yeah, maybe she like became one with nature and saw the truth and entered into nothingness by like phasing through the walls of the world. But yeah, it's just sort of like oh, it's a video game type of twist. There are certain things like Karaka, Uchikoshi's friend, did that in Nagaropa, and I think Zeruski was, and in this specific twist regarding the Freyr also might be have a similar idea that oh, this is a video game, but Tokiko knows this is a video game. Oh ho, ho. Like yeah, it's kind of a fun little tidbit, but it's just that if you want the story to have logical sense, it has logical sense. If you don't want it to have logical sense and have trippy bullshit, it also has trippy bullshit. So anyway, it's trying to like give satisfaction to both sides. If you wanted to see some trippy nonsense and crazy twist, then you kind of did it. But the crazy twist is also in the same way that it doesn't go absolutely have like zero time dilemma or Worship's last reward, where it also kind of like sacrifices a lot of logic and restrictions. Like no matter how you look at it, even if the twist is kind of like restricted or whatever, like it's not the fact that Ryuki, Mizuki, and Bibi were like idiots. Like they really didn't know what they can do. They don't have the shifter ability that the Zero Escape characters have. So they can't just will their self into a different timeline when things go soft. They have to like be sticking there in the world they live in and have to face consequences. You know, the whole Ryuku's like back there saying, "Oh, get up! You have to. Even if you make mistakes, you have to get up and face reality." Like all the great messages won't happen if the characters had the ability to time travel. And one of the issues is that if the culprit terror managed to create a portal, and if he dragged the body into the future, then the question becomes if terror can open the door to the future, then maybe Ryu and Mizuki can use it, and they will also manage to use all those that door to essentially cheat the rules. Like Ryuki doesn't have to feel guilty about anything. He can just go to the past and fix his mistake of being threatened by terror and letting essentially like letting Kizuna lose her legs and almost like killing Dare. I mean, he almost did kill Dare, and he for the longest time he kind of believed himself to have done so. So yeah, I think this twist like really works really well. And for the most part, yes, it does sacrifice certain logic, but I think the sacrifices is actually, in my opinion, like bothers me the least. Yes, I think the sacrifice that bothers me the most is zero time dilemmas. It sacrificed so much of the character progression. Like Akane and like Junpei couldn't even develop their relationship further just because they keep getting injected by all those stuff. Diana and Fai and Sigma also couldn't develop their relationship because they also get injected all the time. If anything, the fact that they Diana and Sigma managed to develop their relationship in a fragment that's very time skippy, where they were trapped and had no way to out, that was actually one of the better routes. I think Uchikoshi kind of realizes that one of the more character emotion heavy moments, like Diana and Sigma's like that trap moment in there, was much more appealing, which is why I think AA the Somnium Files generally focuses more on the characters a lot rather than like just trying to do crazy dumb shit. Yeah, eventually all that crazy dumb roller coaster hype is going to like wear out, and you're just going to care. What you end up mostly caring about is the characters and their emotions, as well as the things they represent, their ideals, and the things you learned about life from them. Now, what I really liked about also the finale, really visit Mame's Somnium, is that Mame also talks about how things could have been different if she did this or if she didn't do this. That type of stuff was also really cool. Or what if I did this? What if I just took care of my dad? Or what if I didn't make this choice? What if I didn't try to work at some fishbook underage? But at the end of the day, the past is the past. You have to carry on. The only thing that you can affect is the present moment, and that is true in our life. And that's in a way that's almost like better, right? Like whether like. Let me ask you, do you want to be in the world of Zero Escape where everyone is able to time travel and jump into different timelines? So hypothetically, you could go into different timelines. Do you want that? Or do you want AI Somnium Files where, yes, technically different timelines could possibly exist, but none of the characters and you possibly don't have the ability to jump through time and you are stuck with your consequences. And on one hand, yes, you don't have the ability to change the past. But on the other hand, maybe changing the past is kind of sucky. Maybe you might just do your daily routine and then suddenly you just get jumped by a different you from another different timeline. Maybe that's kind of worse. And no matter what you did, like even if you like killed someone and is going to go to jail, maybe it's better to like be in reality and stick with reality and like stick with your consequences. Because at the end of the day, even if you're going to jail, it's an experience. You're still in reality. You're still with real people. So like, and not just like abandoning all these consequences and reality to go into a different timeline and do time travel. And pretending that the world is an illusion. So in a way, I think like it almost felt like this finale rejected Zero Escape's timey wimey going to change the past attitude. Like no matter what the present moment or what happened in the past, people are going to be stuck with the past. Ryuki isn't going to like change the past through time travel. He isn't going to open the portal to 6 years into the past. That's not going to happen. He's just going to like be stuck with whatever he did, how he betrayed Dare and how he, entrapped everyone and made Mizuki lose her eyes, attacked Bibi and almost killed Date, essentially robbed Date's 6 year life. Also made Kizuna lose her legs. He's going to live with that, and Mama is going to live with the fact that she's going to be in jail. There is something like beautiful about reality in the sense that there are consequences. You can't just time travel to fix all your problems. And you can always think about this reality is fictional, and in reality, the true reality is much more better than this. But that's just not going to help anything, really. I think that's a good message. And much more helpful message than, we solved this cool mystery through time travel shenanigans, and we're going to the past to change the past. And even then, like Temiyoji also kind of debunked that theory in Virtue's Last Word too. I think the same message that Temiyoji said in the finale, in the epilogue of Virtue's Last Word is also kind of being present here too, which is really cool. It's kind of like repeating the same kind of message, the right message, but in a different context. Like this face transplant trick is also like really cool. Even if this whole like the timelines or warp thing kind of thing didn't happen, this mystery would also be still really be cool to solve. Like I really thought that the post-mortem trick, how the culprit managed to place the body on the railing and it naturally fell down after post-mortem is kind of cool. Like that's a little neat trick that I didn't know was possible. So yeah, I think that's about it. It's I really enjoyed this game, and I also really enjoyed the new characters and the messages. Again, how he learned to love himself, and also like so. It also, by the way, positive voices again. That's really cool. I really want to, I guess, listen to this in the Japanese audio because the song is really good. Lian Lee actually voices Kizna. She is a really great singer, and that song, yeah, I kind of wish Kizna sang other songs too, but the song that she did sing was really good, and the finale song was like really great. It was also like almost a better finale than, yeah, it was definitely a bit more enjoyable finale than the previous one. And also, like, the action was improved. Yeah, the song is really good. I really like it. And I mean, look at this dance. This looks so beautiful. Like, I could just cry. Like, look at this. Yeah, it's a really good, great song. Characters I really enjoyed a lot. Shoma, like, comedy stuff was also really great. Like, this, I think in terms of characters, this game, like, really hit hard. I mean, to be fair, AI Somnium Files also had the really great characters too. Like Falco, like Dada, Boss, all the great characters. Oda was kind of like, but I mean, he grew up. I still really like Oda, and even in the sequel too, he kind of like turned out to be badass with the car and the vehicle. I also did some things too. So in general, I think the characters also were really great, and we got a bunch of faces, and also Mama get to actually participate. Participate in the main story. She became the main villain, the twist villain. It's really good. Yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I think this might actually be one of my favorite Uchikoshi games of all time, possibly. Maybe. I mean, I'm kind of like kind of in the dopamine rush of like just finishing this game. Yeah, and that's about it. I really enjoyed this game, and hey, AI Somnium File 3 or whatever it is that Uchikoshi is going to work on next, and I'm ready for it.